I work the night shift at the Boston Archives. Today, I found my replacement's obituary from 1995. Have you ever heard silence that has weight? Not just the absence of sound, but a dense, cotton-like mass that presses against your eardrums until you want to scream just to check if you haven't gone deaf. That is exactly the kind of silence that fills the basement of the Boston Public Library at 3 a.m. My name is Sarah, and I'm an archivist. Sounds boring, I know. My job is to digitize decaying newspapers from the 1920s, feeding them into a massive, perpetually overheating scanner. I sit 2 floors underground in an old brick building that smells of centuries-old dust, ozone from the machines, and my cold coffee from Dunkin' Donuts. I love order. I am rational. I do not believe in ghosts. But what happened tonight made me question if anything around me is real at all. It all started with boredom. The monotonous hum of the scanner was lulling me to sleep. I was mechanically scrolling through microfiche, tiny images of newspaper pages on a glowing screen. Boston of the Roaring '20s. Prohibition, gangsters, ads for miracle tonics. And then the scanner jammed. The tape skipped forward, jumping several decades. A page from the Boston Globe lit up the screen. But the date was different. May 1995. I reached for the scroll wheel to wind the tape back, but my gaze caught a familiar face in the obituary column. My heart skipped a beat. From a black and white, grainy photograph, Mark was looking at me. My relief. The same Mark who relieves me every morning at 7, jokes about the weather and chews on a sesame bagel. The same nose with a bump, the same horn-rimmed glasses. Name, Mark D. Sullivan. Date of death, May 12th, 1995. Cause, accident in the city tunnel. I laughed nervously. The sound of my laughter sounded pathetic in the empty hall. Very funny, Mark, I whispered. Great Photoshop. You got me. I tried to convince myself it was a prank, or a coincidence, but the mole above the left eyebrow in the photo was identical. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. The microfiche screen hummed quietly, emitting a deathly green light, and the face of dead Mark seemed to grin through the film grain. I needed water, or something stronger, but there's only a water cooler in the archives. I got up and headed to the break room. My footsteps echoed loudly off the concrete floor. I pushed the door open, and reality showed its first crack. My favorite red mug, which I had left by the sink 10 minutes ago, was standing in the center of the table. My jacket, which I hung on the back of the chair, was turned inside out. The sleeves dangled like empty intestines, and on the table lay a yellow sticky note. On it, in my handwriting, my damn handwriting, it was written, "Don't forget to close section B, Sarah." I grabbed the paper. My fingers were trembling. I didn't write this. I definitely remember not writing this. Okay, calm down, I said aloud to myself. Check the cameras. I returned to the security post, which was combined with my desk. I rewound the footage 10 minutes. On the screen, in the black and white grain of the surveillance camera, I saw the break room. Here I come into the frame, but something was wrong. The fluorescent light in the video flickered, creating a creepy stroboscopic effect. The me in the video moved jerkily, unnaturally fast, like a broken doll in stop-motion animation. The me walked up to the table, violently turned the jacket inside out, wrote a note with broken hand movements, and abruptly turned her head directly at the camera. The image hissed with static. I felt sick. This isn't gaslighting. This is insanity. I needed to get out of here. To hell with the job. To hell with the fines. I grabbed my bag and ran to the elevator. The call button didn't light up. I pressed it again and again, hearing only empty clicking of plastic. Damn it. I dashed to the stairs. The door was locked. My keycard beeped with a red diode. Access denied. Hey, anybody? I screamed, pounding on the heavy fire door. Silence swallowed my scream like water swallows a sponge. I was trapped.
I had to return to the main archive hall to try and find another exit through the emergency subway tunnel that connected to the building's old foundation. I entered the hall and froze. The shelving units in Section B, massive metal shelves on rails that move using rotating handles, they had been rearranged. Before, they stood in neat rows. Now they formed a chaotic, angular maze. The aisles were narrow, dark, leading deep inside where the light of the duty lamps didn't reach. Dust hung in the air, a thick, dense suspension illuminated by the orange light of the emergency exit. The air seemed to have turned solid. And then I heard it. A cough. A dry, barking, senile cough. It came from the depths of the shelving maze. "Who's there?" My voice cracked into a shriek. "I'm calling the police." I rushed to the service phone on the wall. The dial tone was there, but it was strange. Long, sluggish, with some sort of gurgling undertone. I dialed Mark's number. I needed to hear his voice, to confirm the obituary was a lie, that he was alive, that I was just overworked. "Hello?" The voice in the receiver was sleepy and annoyed. "Sarah? Sarah, thank God, it's Sarah. There's something weird going on at the archives. The doors are locked, someone moved the shelves." "Sarah?" Interrupted. "Which Sarah?" "Sarah, your relief!" The pause lasted an eternity. I heard only static crackling on the line. "Lady, I don't know who you are, but I haven't worked at the city archives for 10 years. Ever since they found that guy down there." "What? What are you talking about?" The call cut off, but there was no dial tone. Instead, a quiet, rhythmic sound came from the receiver, sounding like a distant, stifled laugh. I dropped the handset. It hung by the cord, swinging like a pendulum. Ahead, between the shelves of Section B, a shadow flashed. I squinted. That was no ghost. Ghosts don't wear boots with peeling soles. From behind a rack of 1930s documents, a figure emerged. It was an old man. His face was hidden by a matted gray beard and layers of dirt. He reeked so badly the smell reached me even from 30 feet away. A mix of unwashed body, rotting teeth, and old paper. But the scariest part wasn't that. He was wearing an archive employee vest, old style, the kind they wore in the 90s. On his chest hung a badge stained with something brown. He held a box cutter in his hand. The blade glinted predatorily in the gloom. He is not a ghost. He is a squatter. In my head, everything clicked into a horrifying picture. The missing food, strange sounds in the ventilation I blamed on rats, things changing places. He lives here, in the walls, in the old tunnels, for years. He rearranged the mugs, he turned the jacket inside out. He wrote notes mimicking my handwriting, studying me from the dark. He thinks he works here, that he is the head archivist. The old man raised the knife and ran it along the spine of an old book, making a nasty scraping sound. "Violation of order," he wheezed. His voice sounded like crunching gravel. "Section B is not closed." He took a step toward me. I ran. I flew into the server room, the only room with a reliable lock. I slammed the door, turned the latch, and slid down the wall to the floor. Outside, heavy thuds rang out. He was slamming his body against the door. "Open up," he said, but not in his own voice. He said it in my voice, a perfect imitation of my tone, my intonations. "Open up.
Mark is waiting for you. Then the light in the server room flickered and went out completely. I was left in total darkness, lit only by the blinking diodes of the servers. I clamped my hand over my mouth to keep from sobbing. The noise outside stopped. Silence returned. That same heavy, cotton-like silence. And in this silence, I heard a quiet clank of metal behind me. Above, under the ceiling. I slowly raised my head, though I couldn't see anything. The sound of a bolt being unscrewed. Clink. The bolt fell to the floor somewhere near me. The ventilation grate. It was large enough for a person to crawl through, and it went straight to the corridor where he was. Or, oh God, the grate wasn't being unscrewed from the outside. It was gently removed from inside the server room. In the darkness, right over my ear, came a warm, moist breath. The smell of rot hit my nose. Silence in the library, he whispered.
Do you know what frogging is? Sounds like the name of some innocent children's game, doesn't it? Hopping around like a frog, but in my profession, that word sends a cold shiver down my spine. It's just dry statistics, nothing personal. Studies show that right now, in every 100th large commercial building or private mansion in the US, someone is living there, secretly, in the ventilation, in utility crawl spaces, behind false walls. They eat your food while you sleep. They watch your TVs while you're at work. They breathe the same air as you. The sound of a Monster Energy can opening rang out in the hollow silence like a gunshot. I took a sip, grimacing at the chemical sweetness. My name is Alex, and I work the night shift at Oak Ridge Private School, an elite institution in the suburbs of Washington. Parents pay $40,000 a year for their kids to study in this temple of glass and concrete. It's 3 a.m., winter break. The building has been empty for a week, or that's what my roster says. The job is a slacker's dream. Sit in the booth, stare at a wall of monitors, do a round once an hour. I don't believe in ghosts, poltergeists, or any of that nonsense. I'm only afraid of one thing: dying of boredom. 0100 hours. Time for the first round. Oak Ridge isn't like those old schools in horror movies. No creaky floorboards or gloomy portraits here. It's a high-tech architectural masterpiece. Classroom walls are transparent. The corridors are wide galleries with polished floors. But at night, that works against you. You walk and you see your reflection in 1,000 surfaces. It feels like someone is walking parallel to you, but you turn your head and it's just you, distorted by double-paned glass. I was walking through the north wing. The acoustic ceiling tiles swallowed my footsteps. At the end of the hall, near the chemistry lab, a red LED blinked. Motion sensor. I froze, hand resting on my belt where my radio and heavy maglite hung. Damn HVAC, I muttered. The ventilation here is powerful. It moves the air so hard that sometimes the blinds move on their own. I turned into the teacher's lounge to check the coffee machine. Teachers always forget to turn it off. Inside, it didn't smell of chalk and dust, but of something sharp. The smell of cheap, sweet cologne. Strange. The staff here wears perfume that cost more than my car. I looked at the bulletin board. There was a flyer for Alice safety protocols. Standard instructions for an active shooter: alert, lockdown, inform, counter, evacuate. Someone had made an edit on the drill schedule with a black marker, and right over it in bold red was written 2:45. I rubbed the bridge of my nose. Damn pranksters. Probably high school seniors decided to joke around before the break, and the cleaners missed it. Back at the post, I collapsed into my chair and stared at the monitors. Camera 4, the library, a huge hall with book stacks and a reading zone. My heart skipped a beat. In the middle of the central aisle stood a chair,
I distinctly remember pushing all the chairs in during my start of shift round. I have a thing about it. Perfect order. I reached for the radio to call my partner, then remembered I'm alone. Reduced staff for the holidays. The radio on the desk suddenly let out a short psh. Static crackle, as if someone pressed the transmit button for a split second and immediately released it. 10-4? I asked mechanically into the void. Silence. I grabbed my flashlight and headed to the library. I had to put that damn chair back. It's just nerves, sleep deprivation, and caffeine. The library was quiet like a crypt. Moonlight spilled through the panoramic windows, casting long shadows from the shelves. The chair was there, defiantly pulled out into the middle. I walked up, grabbed the backrest, and shoved it forcefully under the table. Ding dong. The sound of the school bell cut through the silence, but it was wrong, muffled like it was passed through a bad filter, and it rang from only one speaker directly above my head. Then the PA system came to life. Attention, code red. This is not a drill. Intruder in the perimeter. I recognized that voice. It was my voice.
But I hadn't said anything. The intonation was mechanical, sliced together from phrases I might have said in phone calls or reports. I backed away, towards the library exit, and my gaze slid through the glass partition down to the gym on the floor below. There, in the corner where the wrestling mats are usually rolled up, something had changed. The mats were laid out. They formed a neat, perfectly tucked nest. Beside it stood a bottle of water and a stack of books. Someone lives here. Not a ghost. A human. I sprinted back to the security room. Screw the protocols, I'm calling the police. Flying into the security fishbowl, I grabbed the phone. There was a dial tone. Thank God. But then I noticed my logbook lying open on the desk. Didn't I close it? I looked at the page. Below my last entry, 0100 perimeter clear, new lines had appeared. The handwriting looked like mine, but sharper, jagged, with heavy pressure tearing through the paper. 0215. Subject deviated from route. 0230. Subject noticed the nest. 0245. Initiating elimination protocol. The clock on the wall showed 0244. My throat went dry. I'm not the guard here. To whoever wrote this, I am the intruder, and he is the one restoring order. I looked up at the wall of monitors. Camera 1, the corridor right outside my door. There was a figure. A man in a security uniform, exactly like mine. Blue shirt, black pants. He stood with his back to the camera, staring at the door behind which I sat. But something was wrong with his head. I squinted at the grainy image. His face was completely, tightly wrapped in gray duct tape. The door handle slowly turned. The lock was engaged, but the mechanism creaked under pressure. "Police! 911! I have a break-in threat to life! Oak Ridge School!" I screamed into the receiver, bracing my foot against the door. The handle jerked methodically. Up, down, up, down. No rage, just frightening mechanical persistence. "Sir, a patrol is 2 minutes away. They were checking a false fire alarm on the next street." In the distance, I heard the wail of sirens, approaching fast. The pressure on the door handle vanished instantly. On the monitor, the corridor was empty. 3 minutes later, the building was filled with flashlight beams and the stomping of heavy boots. Police kicked in the front door. I walked out to them, shaking hands, clutching a soda can. They swept the school. In the basement, in the boiler room, they found a man. A dirty, smelly, homeless guy, about 50. He was high,
barely standing, mumbling something incoherent. "We got your ghost, son," an elderly Irishman clapped me on the shoulder. "Climbed in to get warm, found your logs, decided to play games. Junkies, what can you do?" I exhaled. The adrenaline was fading, leaving nausea and a hysterical chuckle. "He wrote in my logbook," I started. "Yeah, we took the log as evidence. Go home, kid. We'll finish the inventory and close the perimeter." The police were leading the homeless man out. I was packing my things. My eyes fell on the arrest report the officer left on the desk for me to sign. The detainee's signature was there. A shaky, weak hand, crooked letters. I remembered the logbook. Sharp, clear, calligraphic handwriting of a maniac. This homeless guy could barely hold a pen. He couldn't know the PA system codes. He couldn't move that fast between the library and the guard post. The police caught the wrong guy. He's still here. Click. The main lighting in the building died. Immediately, with a hum, the emergency lights kicked in, dim red, bathing the corridors in the color of dried blood. The PA system came alive. The voice was calm, authoritative, devoid of emotion. "Shift is not over. Unauthorized personnel cannot leave the territory. Activating lockdown protocol."
A thunderous crash echoed through the building. Magnetic locks engaging on all exits. Active shooter protection system. We are locked in. At the end of the long red corridor, a figure appeared. He was in uniform, but it wasn't a modern, cheap uniform. It was a perfectly pressed, starched uniform from the 90s, with a peaked cap and shiny buttons. He stood unnaturally straight, stretched tight like a wire. In his right hand, he held a long rubber baton. In his left, a bunch of keys that didn't jingle. The creature raised a radio to its tape-wrapped face. From my radio, on my belt, my own voice spoke. "Intruder in Sector A, proceeding to neutralize. 10-4. He didn't run like people run. He dropped to all fours, never letting go of the baton, and scurried towards me with the unnatural, broken speed of an insect, limbs skittering across the polished floor. I didn't wait to test the door's strength. I grabbed a heavy metal chair and, with a wild scream, hurled it at the panoramic window behind me. The hurricane-proof glass cracked, but didn't shatter. The thing was 10 meters away. I could hear the rustle of fabric against the floor. I struck again and again. The glass showered down in a rain of shards. I jumped out into the winter night, not feeling the sharp edges slicing my hands and face. I ran to my car, slipping on the ice, hearing only silence behind me. No pursuit. He cannot leave the post. I quit over the phone while driving to the hospital. The police did a second sweep, but found no one. They wrote it all off as a nervous breakdown and hallucinations from exhaustion. The homeless guy was jailed for trespassing. Now I work remotely. Texts, translations. No night shifts, no big buildings. But sometimes I order grocery delivery. The boxes are left at my door, and when I pick them up, I notice one detail. The factory tape on the box is always cut, neatly, surgically precise, and then taped back, layer perfectly over layer. And when I bring the boxes into my apartment, I smell a faint, sweet scent of cheap cologne. I know what it means. The patrol zone has been expanded, and now I am the main intruder on his list.
Have you ever heard how your brain functions when it's bored? There is a term for it: acoustic pareidolia. It's when you hear music in the hum of a fan or whisperings in the sound of running water. Your brain is a pattern-seeking machine. Chaos frightens it, so it molds random sounds into something familiar. Faces in the clouds, voices in the static. I knew all about this. I read the studies. I prepared myself. I considered myself a rationalist, damn it. I thought 3 weeks in a fire lookout tower in the Gunnison National Forest would be easy money and time to finish my books. I was wrong. God, was I wrong. Day 1. My tower is a standard box on stilts, sticking up 40 feet above the ground. The view from here is breathtaking, an endless sea of pines and rocks. Inside, it smells of old wood and dust. I unpacked my gear, an REI sleeping bag, a box of MREs, Chili Mac flavor, absolute trash, but it'll do, and my trusty Stanley thermos with coffee. The wind here never stops for a second. It beats against the cabin glass with a sound like someone trying to tune a radio frequency. Baker 3, radio check, I said into the handset, holding down the button. 10-4, Baker 3. I hear you, but with interference. Storm front approaching. End radio voice, replied the dispatcher, old Hank. His voice was drowning in the crackle of static. I smirked. Rookies often lose their minds in the first week. They think the wind is calling their name. I just poured myself some coffee, opened a book, and listened to the drone. To me, it was just white noise, physics, the movement of air masses. At night, I woke up to a creaking sound. The sound was coming from below. Creak, creak. It was the wooden stairs. I lay in my sleeping bag, listening. Bears don't walk rhythmically. Deer don't climb stairs. The wood is cooling down after the heat, I told myself. Temperature changes, thermal contraction. Don't be an idiot, Mike. I forced myself to sleep, though my hand rested on the handle of the hatchet under my bed. Day 5. In the morning, I went down to check the water tank. The ground was damp from the night fog. And then I saw them. Tracks. They circled the tower supports. They weren't boots. They were bare feet. But something was wrong with them. The toes, they were splayed unnaturally wide, like a fan pressed against glass. And the size, too big for a human, too narrow for a Sasquatch or any other cryptid nonsense. I went back up and bolted the hatch shut. My heart was hammering somewhere in my throat. Suddenly, the radio came to life. Baker 3, what the hell? Hank's voice cut through the hiss. I grabbed the radio. Baker 3 here. What's going on, Hank? 10-4. Just interference, probably. The affected voice sounded strange. Too clean. Usually the radio chews sounds, adding digital grit, but here the voice sounded like Hank was standing right behind me. Out, I muttered. For the rest of the day, I sat staring at the forest. The wind picked up. Now, in its howl, I could hear fragments of phrases. Went down, open, Mike. Acoustic pareidolia. I repeated it like a mantra.
Day 9. The storm. It started towards evening. The sky turned black-purple, and the wind hit the windows so hard the glass vibrated. The cabin was shaking. The noise became unbearable. First, I heard music, old jazz that my father loved. Then, a baby crying. And then, the wind spoke with my mother's voice. Mikey, let me in. It's cold out here. She died 5 years ago. This isn't real, I whispered. I took out my Sony WH-1000 XM4 headphones, the best noise canceling on the market. I put them on and turned on active noise canceling. The world instantly became muffled and cotton-like. My mother's voice vanished. I exhaled and closed my eyes. Thump, thump, thump. I opened my eyes. The sound broke through the noise canceling. It wasn't a sound. It was a vibration. Someone was knocking at the hatch in the floor. I sat with my legs tucked in, feeling the blows resonate in the soles of my boots. Thump, thump. We're at 40 feet. There is only a narrow staircase and a 50-mile-per-hour wind. The knocking was demanding, rhythmic, conscious. I couldn't move. The sonic barrier of my headphones, which was supposed to protect me, was now working against me. I didn't hear the storm. I only heard this dull, persistent knocking from below. I had to check. I had to make sure it was a branch or loose siding. I crawled to the window overlooking the stairs. Outside, it was pitch black. A flash of lightning tore the sky apart. On the stairs, just a few meters below the platform, someone was standing. A human, absolutely naked. His skin was gray, as if smeared with wet ash or clay. He was thin, with unnaturally long limbs that convulsively gripped the railing. He wasn't looking at his hands. He was looking straight up, straight at me. In the next second, the radio on the table hissed. But the creature on the stairs wasn't holding a radio. It simply opened its mouth, wide, too wide, revealing rows of teeth that were more numerous than they should be. And from the speaker of my radio, sitting inside the locked cabin, came my own voice. "Help me! God, it's here! Open the hatch!" It was my scream, recorded perfectly, but the creature below just smiled that horrible, toothy smile while the radio broadcasted my panic. It wasn't using a frequency. It was mimicking the signal. It was making the speaker vibrate. I recoiled, tripped over my backpack, and fell. "Baker 3? Baker 3, come in!" The radio suddenly barked in a completely different tone. It was Hank, the real Hank. The voice was distorted with crackle and static. "Baker 3, a ranger team is headed your way. We detected unauthorized activity in your sector. Hang in there, son. They'll be there in 5 minutes." I crawled to the window. Below, on the fire road, 2 bright beams pierced through the veil of rain. Headlights. Warm, yellow, electric light. The most beautiful thing I had ever seen. The car was approaching the tower fast. I looked at the stairs again. Empty. The creature had vanished, dissolving into the forest, scared of the light. I sobbed. I laughed and sobbed at the same time. An SUV with the USFS emblem stopped at the base of the tower. The engine was running, headlights illuminating the bottom steps. "I'm coming down," I yelled into the radio, grabbing my jacket. I threw open the hatch. The wind hit my face, but the fear was gone. Down there were people, weapons, safety. I flew down the steps, taking them 2 at a time. I ran to the car, out of breath. "Guys, you have no idea how glad I am to I froze. The driver's door was ajar. There was no one in the car. The engine was idling. The headlights hit the tree trunks. There was no ranger in the driver's seat. Lying there was an old cassette recorder. From the recorder's speaker, looping without pause, came Hank's voice. "Ranger team, hang in there. Be there in 5 minutes." It wasn't a radio. It was a recording.
Cold went down my spine, freezing my insides. I stood alone, in the dark, at the foot of the tower, next to an empty decoy car. I heard a sound, right behind my back. Not the creaking of wood, not the wind. The wet crunch of twigs under heavy, wide, bare feet. And the smell of damp earth, rot, and an unwashed body hit my nose. Someone leaned in close to my ear. I felt hot breath. 10-4, Baker 3.
Have you ever wondered how well algorithms know you? Not just what sneakers you like, but where you will be in 10 minutes, how fast your heart beats when you're nervous, and what you are willing to do for an extra $50. My name is Alex, and I live in the driver's seat of my 2018 Honda Civic. Well, technically, I rent a room in the suburbs of Seattle, but realistically, I live here, in the blue glow of a smartphone. I'm a cog in the gig economy, shuffling greasy food from the fryer to the front door while the rest of the world sleeps. The cabin smells of stale French fries and cheap vanilla car air freshener that gave up a long time ago. My eyes burn from dryness. It's 2:45 a.m. I wanted to go home, but then it pinged. New order. 5 guys, $6.50, plus $50 tip. Distance, 12 miles. Mercer Island. $50 for one damn burger. Mercer Island is an island for the rich in the middle of Lake Washington. There are no streetlights there to preserve the natural beauty, and the fences are higher than my future. My finger hit accept before my brain could think. The algorithm knew I was broke. It knew I would take it. The road was empty. The GPS led me across the bridge, deep into the island where mansions hide behind walls of ancient pine trees. I stopped at the destination. It wasn't a house. It was a monolith of glass and concrete, black and lifeless against the night sky. Not a single light, not a single car in the driveway. Just perfect silence, the kind that only exists where people have too much money. I got out of the car. The cold air from the lake hit my face, chilling me to the bone. I walked up to the massive front door. The instructions in the app were standard. Contactless delivery. Leave at door. Do not ring doorbell. I placed the paper bag on the immaculately clean mat, took out my phone, turned on the flash. Click. A SOO of the bag against the black lacquered door. As soon as I pressed confirm delivery, a sound tore through the silence. Bling! It wasn't the delivery app sound, it was the standard iOS sound. AirDrop. I froze. Who the hell sends an airdrop at 3 in the morning in the woods? A notification hung on the screen. iPhone, house-01, wants to share a photo. My finger trembled, but I accepted. The photo loaded instantly. The shot was grainy, black and white, taken in night vision mode. It was me, from behind, standing right now in front of this damn door. I spun around. Darkness. Only the sound of wind in the pine tops. My heart skipped a beat, then started hammering somewhere in my throat. The shot was taken from a height, maybe from a tree or a pole behind me. "Screw this," I whispered. I sprinted to the car, jumped inside, locked the doors. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped the keys on the mat, fumbled, found them, jammed them into the ignition, turned. Click, click, click. Nothing. The dashboard didn't even light up. The electronics were dead, as if someone had yanked the battery out. And then, my phone screen, still mounted on the holder,
lit up again. The delivery app hadn't closed. The order status changed, flashing with a red banner. Warning: customer changed delivery address. I stared at the map. The new address wasn't a street. It was a geotag. My geotag. In the order comments field, a cursor started blinking. Text began typing itself, letter by letter, slowly, mockingly. DELIVEDRIVER.
At that second, the house came alive. Floodlights flared up, not warm home lights, but blinding white industrial-strength LED panels installed around the perimeter of the lawn. All of them were aimed at one point, at my Honda Civic. I was blinded. I was like a bug under a magnifying glass. With a hiss, the lawn sprinklers turned on. Water drummed against the roof and windows of the car, creating the illusion that I was being locked in a cage. Alex Miller. The voice was loud, distorted, coming from the Ring doorbell speaker at the front door. It was a synthesized voice, devoid of intonation, the kind that reads donations on streams. It was reading my dossier. I pressed myself into the seat, shielding my eyes from the floodlights. This isn't a robbery. This is some kind of twisted show. I yanked the door handle. I needed to run. The car is a coffin. I tumbled out into the icy water of the sprinklers and the blinding light, ran toward the complex gates I had driven through 2 minutes ago. They began to close, slowly, with a heavy mechanical hum. I sped up, but I didn't make it. The gate section slammed shut with a clang that echoed through the forest. The lock clicked. I turned back to the house. Because of the floodlights, the windows were black voids, but in one, on the second floor, a dim red light was burning. Someone was standing there. A silhouette. It twitched. Not like a human. The movement was sharp, unnatural. An arm shot up at an impossible angle, then the head jerked to the right. The strobe light caught the face for a second. It was a mannequin. Glossy plastic, painted smile. It was being yanked by cables, like a marionette. And next to it, just in the shadows, stood someone, alive, in a black hoodie. He was holding his phone horizontally. He was filming me. I felt sick. I realized what this was. A red room, a dark web game. Someone paid in Bitcoin to watch a delivery guy run in panic. Suddenly, my phone in my pocket vibrated. A call. The Uber Eats logo flashed on the screen. Support and safety team. I grabbed the phone, nearly dropping it with wet hands. "Hello? Help!" I screamed. "Alex, this is Jessica from Driver Emergency Support. Our system detected a trip anomaly and GPS signal loss. Are you safe?" No, I'm trapped. There's some psycho here. The gates are closed. They know my name." "Calm down, Alex. We see your geolocation. I have already sent the data to the King County Police. Patrol will be there in 12 minutes. I exhaled, sliding against the wet car. God, reality. Someone knows. Help is coming. Hold music started playing in the receiver. That same jazz saxophone I'd heard 1,000 times when disputing canceled orders. That cheap, looped melody had never seemed so beautiful to me. It was an anchor, a connection to the normal world. "Jessica?" I called out after a minute. The music cut off. Silence lasted for a couple of seconds. "I'm here, Alex," the voice replied. But it wasn't Jessica. The tone had changed. The professionalism was gone. A slight,
Barely noticeable mockery appeared in the voice. "The police will arrive in 15 minutes," Jessica said, and I heard the clacking of a keyboard in the background. "But we only paid for 10 minutes of airtime." My blood ran cold. "What?" I whispered. "Game time is limited, Alex. Ratings drop if the target doesn't move. Run." The call disconnected. And in that same second, I heard a new sound. A slow, heavy grinding of metal on metal. The garage doors, directly in front of me, began to rise. From the darkness of the garage, a smell drifted out, something sweet and metallic. I didn't wait to see what would come out of there. I ran into the darkness, towards where the fence looked lower, hearing the synthesized laughter echoing over the perfect lawn behind me.